Well, it's good to see everybody here this morning. And as you can tell, Reese is not just a pretty face. He can do a really good job reading Scripture. We appreciate him so much. I want to welcome our visitors here. We've got a good number of visitors with us this morning. It's good to see the Grounds family here, and glad to have them here. I'm so sorry, girls. I always either mispronounce your names or just forget them. But if it makes you feel any better, I've got 5 kids and I forget their names half the time. So it works. One on the way, I think we got his name. So it is good to see everybody here. And I want to just kind of make mention of something because, you're not going to remember. This is one of those things I'm going to remember. But a year ago at this time, I stepped through the doors of this congregation for the first time, having met the good brethren here for the first time. And then, of course, we were preparing to move here. And so we're thankful for the congregation here. And it really kind of what this day represents to us. And I know that probably some of you are thinking, man, a year, it's gone by real fast. Kelly's thinking, it's been like 10 years. Just 1 year has been like 10. But, But I will say this, that I think that there's a lot of good things that we can do in the congregation here. I think we've come a good ways already in some things. And I'm just going to be very, very blunt, okay? I'm going to be very blunt. Sometimes I like whenever I'm preaching to just kind of, be abstract about what I'm saying and just, let you kind of pick that up as you go. And maybe if you're really paying attention, you'll grasp it. But I just want to tell you right now, okay? So there's a sermon that we're going to have in just a moment that's meant for the congregation here because I think that we're still rebuilding. I think that the congregation's been through a lot. And I knew that coming in, and I knew that there was going to be some things that we needed to do. But I think that there's a lot of rebuilding still to come. But I have some high hopes. I think that we've got a good foundation here to work with. And I just want to talk about these things this morning concerning rebuilding. Well, let's look at Nehemiah chapter 4 through 6. Don't worry, Kelly, I'm not going to read every verse, okay? It's okay. You're going to be fine. But we're going to look at several passages here just to kind of set things up. Starts off with a prayer by Nehemiah, but as things develop, we know that Jerusalem has just been destroyed. The wall's been broken down. The city's in disrepair. There's a couple of returns back to take care of things, and this is one of those where they go back and they try to rebuild the wall because the gates have been burned, the wall's been broken down, and the people that are still there are in great danger. There are, we sometimes think, well, everybody was taken. Not everybody was taken. Some people are left right there, but they're left in such disrepair that they're in danger constantly by their enemies. They have no protection. And so that's kind of what sets this up here. You've got Nehemiah. Nehemiah, he's a cupbearer. We don't think very much about this, but, he's a very trusted position. This is the man that, if he were going to poison the king, he'd be the one to do it. He could get away with it pretty quickly. But all that being said, Nehemiah is a trustworthy person, and he's the cupbearer for the king. And he comes in, you see in chapter 2 that, he comes in one day, and he's never been sad before the king, but today he's sad. The king sees him, and he says, well, why are you sad? And he says, well, how can I be happy? Because, my people, they're back in our home, our home, and all this stuff is in disrepair. The gates have been burned, the wall's broken down. They're not protected. How can I be happy when that's going on? And so he says, well, just ask, what is it that you're asking me? And he wants to go back. He wants to build back the wall. And the king grants it. He also asks that he can have some papers to show that that's exactly what he's doing. And so when he goes back, there won't be any trouble on his part, because he can go back and say, well, you know what, I've got the king's decree here. I can go and do this. And then furthermore, he says, you know what, I also need some timbers from the royal woods here. So could you allow me to go and get some timber so I can build back the gates? Everything's granted. He goes back. And that's where we jump right into things. And let's think about some things that go on. And like I said, I wanted to be blunt. I want you to think about how these points relate to the congregation here. And maybe you'll be able to apply these in ways that I've not even thought of. But think about it specifically, every single thing for what's going on here within the congregation. All right, number one, what we see here is criticism. He gets criticism right off the bat. Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 1 through 6. Look at that with me. But it came to pass that when Sanballat heard that we were building the wall, he was wroth and took great indignation and mocked the Jews. And he spake before his brethren in the army of Samaria and said, what are these feeble Jews doing? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an end in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of rubbish, seeing they are burned? Now Tobiah the Ammonite was by him, and he said, even that which they are building, if a fox go up, he shall break down their stone wall. And so, stop right here as we're going through this. Now, what are they doing? They're trying to rebuild the wall. What are you doing? You can't do that. And that's what they're saying. All these outsiders looking in are saying, whatever they do is going to fail. This isn't going to work. And then, I even love this. If you've ever been out in the woods and you've seen a fox running around, they're pretty graceful creatures, And says, you know what? Even if a fox jumps on this, man, this thing's going to come crashing down. Whatever they do is going to fail. Verse 4. Hear, O our God, for we are despised, and turn back their reproach upon their own head, and give them up for a spoil in the land of captivity, and cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before thee, for they have provoked thee to anger before the builders. So we built the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto half the height thereof, for the people had a mind to work. And so what do? They hear the criticism, and you know what they do anyway? They work anyway. It doesn't matter what they say. That's the great thing about criticism. I've found this to be very true in many regards, but I've found this to be especially true when it comes even to preaching. I've had people, they'll criticize me, and you know what? My heaviest critics would never, ever want to be in my position. You know that? My heaviest critics, they'll tell me how awful of a job I'm doing, and this has been over the years, not here. They'll tell you how awful you are, but they will never, ever step foot in your shoes. They won't do it. They just want to criticize. Just want to put you down. They won't do this. And so what do? They say, well, you know what? We're going to work anyway. Now, who cares what they say? See, that's really where our mindset should be in any regard when it comes to the church, especially. What doesn't matter what anybody says, we're going to work. We're going to do what God says. We're just going to do that. We're going to leave everything else out. There's no reason to listen to criticism. Oh, well, they're never going to amount to anything, or they're going to have more problems. Forget them. Forget that stuff. Get that out of your mind. Those people automatically don't matter in what you're doing. All they're trying to do here is bring them down. They criticize them. But then these people, they have a mind to work. They don't listen. And they build the wall up to half the height. All right. We need to make good time here if we're going to cover 2 chapters, okay? We'll look at a couple of things. Then there's some obstacles. Think about the obstacles. Okay, so they build the wall. And things are going pretty good. They've had a mind to work. They build it up to half the height. And then all of a sudden there are obstacles. Look at some things with me. Starting in verse 7. We'll make some comments as we go. But it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabians and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the preparing of the walls of Jerusalem went forward and that the breaches began to be stopped, then they were very wroth. So, ultimately what this boils down to is, guess what? They were wrong. They were wrong. They didn't like. Does anybody like being wrong? I don't like being wrong. Do you like being wrong? Nobody likes being wrong. I don't know anybody that goes, you know what? I hope I'm wrong today. Nobody wants that. These people didn't want that, but they are very wrong. And so when they find out that they're wrong, well, they get mad. They get mad. They don't like this. They were making fun. They were criticizing. But when they found out that their criticism really fell by the wayside because it was worthless criticism, and they got mad. I have found this to be true so many times. The devil does not want things to go well. When things start going well, guess what? That's when the devil rears his ugly head and he causes problems. I've seen it happen in congregations where things are going just fine. Things are going great, actually. And then all of a sudden, there's these little murmurings and things that happen. I tell you, it's the devil. The devil is at work. People, we need to be wiser than that and realize that it doesn't matter. All this criticism, all this stuff, when things are going well, just keep at it. Keep at it. But obstacles come up here. Let's continue to look at it. Verse 8. And they conspired, all of them together, to come and fight against Jerusalem and to cause confusion there. And so they're upset enough that they want to just go and fight so that they can't even rebuild the wall. So they're going to go and just cause problems here. Verse 9. But we made our prayer unto God and set a watch against them day and night because of them. And Judah said, the strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish so that we are not able to build the wall. And our adversaries said, they shall not know, neither see, till we come into the midst of them and slay them and cause the work to cease. So what's going on is that, the bearers of burdens, I don't know what everybody's translations say there, but these are the people that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. There's a lot of rubble around this, the scriptures here say rubbish, but there's a lot of rubble that's there, and they're picking it up, and they're having to move it. And so people are tired. These people are the people that are just carrying stuff. And they're tired. They are tired. And then it says here that, guess what the enemies are saying? The enemies are saying that before we even know it, they're going to come in and they're going to destroy us. And so they're thinking, we've got a big problem here. Our adversaries are saying they're going to come get us, and the people that are laboring, they're at this point where they can't do much more, and so the work stops. The work stops because of fear here. Verse 12. And it came to pass that when the Jews that dwelt by them came, they said unto us 10 times from all places, Ye must return unto us. Therefore said I in the lowest parts of the space behind the wall, in the open places I set there the people after their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. Now just to kind of illustrate what's going on here. So the work stops, and there are open places, weak places in the wall. And the people that are living by those places, they come out and they're constantly saying, please, so you've got to come back and start work because we're right here. We sleep right next to this wall. If our enemies are going to come, they're going to come in right here. And so please come and help us out. We need things to get back to normal. And so what do? They take their families and they take them and they say, look, we're gonna set up people to work right here, and they're gonna have their weapons, and that's what's gonna happen right in these sections. Verse 14. And I looked and rose up and said unto the nobles and to the rulers and to the rest of the people, Be not ye afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons and your daughters, your wives, and your houses. And it came to pass, when our enemies heard that it was known unto us, and God had brought their counsel to naught, that we returned all of us to the wall, every one unto his work. And so the message gets back to the people. You know what? their enemies here, they are getting back to work. Everything is for naught. They have said they've had a plan, but the plan is foiled, and so everybody gets back to work. Verse 16. And it came to pass from that time forth that half of my servants wrought in the work, and half of them held the spears and the shields and the bows, and the coats of mail, and the rulers were behind all of those of Judah. And so what do? They have people that are armed right there by the people that are working. Verse 17, they all builded the wall, and they that bear burdens laded themselves, every one with one of his hands wrought in the work, and with the other held his weapon. And so, what's going on here is that simply, the people that are doing the manual labor of lifting up things and stuff, so they're doing stuff with one arm. They've got a spear or a sword in one hand, they've got a weapon in one hand, and they're carrying stuff with the other. And so they're picking up a burden, and then they're carrying it somewhere, but they've always got a weapon in hand. And then, of course, there are people here that are building. Well, what do the builders do? Now, verse 18, and the builders, everyone had his sword girded by his side, and so builded, and he that sounded the trumpet was by me. And so, what they're doing is they are ready to fight at any point in time. So the people that are doing all the heavy lifting, they're lifting with one arm, they've got a weapon. The people that are building, they've got their hands free, but they've got a sword on them. They're ready to go at any point in time. They've got their weapons ready for an attack at any point. Verse 19, and I said unto the nobles and to the rulers and to the rest of the people, the work is great and large, and we are separated upon the wall, one far from another. In what place soever ye hear the sound of the trumpet, resort ye thither unto us, our God will fight for us. And so, as they're working, if they hear the trumpet, they go running towards the trumpet. Because that means that wherever that trumpet's being sounded, that's where an attack is coming from. And so they've organized themselves. They're going to fight. And then you got to remember this one thing here. And this is the one thing that just keeps coming up in this, is God is on our side. God is going to fight with us. And so all you've got to do is remember that. You go and fight because God is with us. Now, you think about that when it comes to the work of the church. God is with us when it comes to the work, isn't he? Right? This means yes, and this means no. He is with us. And so we don't need to be afraid. We don't need to be nervous. We don't need to be hesitant. We need to just keep working. Verse 21. So we wrought in the work, and half of them held spears from the rising of the morning, and the stars appeared likewise. At the same time said I unto the people, let everyone with his servant lodge within Jerusalem, that in the night they may be a guard to us, and may labor in the day. So neither I, nor my brethren, nor my servants, nor the men of the guard that followed me, none of us put off our clothes. Everyone went with his weapon to the water. And so this is kind of an interesting translation. I think I've mentioned this on many regards. I'm reminding you right now, I'm not a Hebrew guy, so I rely on other people to tell me what this means. And there's evidently a little bit of a discrepancy as to exactly what is going on here in the translating of this. Does that mean that they didn't wash themselves? And that's possible. It means that maybe they only washed the physical dirt off of them, but they didn't remove their clothes to do that. They just took care of things, that they were always ready. Another thought is in the translating of this is that talking about the strength of one's right hand is a very similar caricature to the idea of a weapon. And so they're saying, look, maybe it is that what they're doing is that they always have their weapon around them. Either way, it doesn't really matter, because what does that mean? They are always prepared. They are always prepared for battle. It didn't matter at what point in time, they are always ready. All right, let's look at the next section here. Now here comes some strife. Now, these obstacles, they came from without. Now we're going to see some strife from within. Look at verses 1 through 9 here of chapter 5. It says, then there arose a great cry of the people and their wives against their brethren, the Jews, for there were that said, We, our sons and our daughters, are many. Let us get grain that we may eat and live. Some also there were that said, we are mortgaging our fields and our vineyards and our houses. Let us get grain because of the dearth. There were also that said, we have borrowed money for the king's tribute upon our fields and our vineyards. Yet now our flesh is the flesh of our brethren, our children as their children. And lo, we bring into bondage our sons and our daughters to be servants. And some of our daughters are brought into bondage already. Neither is it in our power to help it, for other men have our fields and our vineyards. Now, if we look at this, just as it is, you go, okay, so what's going on? And they've mortgaged their fields, so okay, all right. Why do they do that? They're paying off the king. Well, okay. But you don't get the full story unless you read a little bit further. All right, so keep going. Verse 6. And I was very angry when I heard their cry in these words. Now, let's take just a moment here. He's very angry. It's not wrong to be angry. We sometimes will, quote the passage saying, be angry and what? Sin not. So he said, I was very angry. And then I find this next phrase exceptionally interesting. I was very angry. Then I consulted with myself. And what did he do? He sat back and thought about it for a while. I consulted with myself and contended with the nobles and the rulers and said to them, ye exact usury, every one of his brother. And I held a great assembly against him. So this is where we get the full story. They're talking about mortgaging, but see, they've got a ruling class there already. They've got a ruling class, and they are taxing the people to the point that they can't eat and do the work too. And so this is why he's angry. They're taxing these people. And verse 8, it says, and I said unto them, we after our ability have redeemed our brethren the Jews, that were sold unto the nations. And would ye even sell your brethren? And should they be sold unto us? Then held they their peace, and found never a word. Also I said, the thing that ye do is not good. Ought ye not to walk in the fear of God, because of the reproach of the nations, our enemies? And so the strife is coming within. They're being taxed by their own brethren. They're being taken advantage of. And so Nehemiah, he gives them a tongue lashing. It says to the point that they didn't even have anything to say back. They couldn't say anything back to him. And so he just gives them that tongue lashing and says, look, you can't do this. And it says, and likewise, verse 10, my brethren and my servants do lend them money and grain. I pray you, let us leave off this usury. So take care of your brethren. Take care of them. Lend them what they need. Give them some money. Give them some food. Do that for them. That's what they need. That's what we need to do for our brethren. Sometimes strife comes up, and it's a terrible thing to watch, but strife comes up in a congregation. It's a selfish thing. Somebody's doing something wrong. Sometimes both sides are doing something wrong. And we need to give all that up, do the right thing, and take care of each other. Now, I'll mention this as kind of a side note with all these different things, criticism and the strife. This is very true here. There are a lot of people that will do these things. They'll cause problems. You know what happens with those people that cause problems? You know what's really going on? Is they don't have enough to do. They don't have enough. You know what? If you are working, if you got something to do, you don't have time for this kind of nonsense. You got to busy yourself with something good. That's the very first thing I think about whenever I hear somebody causing a problem. I'm thinking, well, they got too much time on their hands. I wonder how much work they're doing for the Lord anyway, if all they can do is sit around and complain about it. You know what? It seems to me that if somebody's going to sit around and complain, that they ought to be thinking about what they can do instead of what they can't do. They need to get up and work. But you know what happens is some people, they do this number, They sit there and they twiddle their thumbs and they think about all the things that everybody else should be doing, and they never once think about the things that they should be doing. And here you think about these nobles. They've taken advantage of their brethren. And they didn't think during all this, well, you know what, we should, there's a greater purpose being served here. Maybe we should let them go and, give them what they need. Didn't once cross their mind. So Nehemiah has to tell them. All right, let's continue on. We got a few more verses here to look at. Here is the distraction. So all that happens. They overcome. You see this obstacle comes up, there's a solution. Another obstacle comes up, there's a solution. All right, here's another one. Here's a distraction coming on. Chapter 6, verse 1. Now it came to pass, when it was reported to Sanballat and Tobiah and to Geshem the Arabian, unto the rest of our enemies, that I had builded the wall, and that there was no breach left therein, though even unto that time I had not set up the doors and the gates, that Sanballat and Geshem sent unto me, saying, Come, let us meet together in one of the villages in the plain of Ono. But they thought to do me mischief. All right, so I don't know how many times I've heard this. I am not reinventing the wheel here. But you've probably heard this phrase. But he hears this. Why don't you come on down here to the plains of Ono? And what does Nehemiah say? Oh no, oh no, I'm not going to Ono. I am not doing that at all. He sees right through this. He knows that they're going to cause mischief, and he goes, oh no, I'm not doing that. Sometimes you can kind of see a trap coming a mile away. And that's what Nehemiah sees clearly, is that this is not good. But you know what? Brethren, we ought to be wise to know that sometimes there might even be people amongst us in a congregation that might cause problems. And we need to be smart enough to go, oh no, I am not doing that. I'm not playing this game. I'm not going to play that at all. So how does Nehemiah combat this? What does he do? Does he say, I'm going to go down? No, he doesn't. Verse 3, And I sent messengers unto them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease whilst I leave it and come down to you? So I'm doing a good work. Why would I leave and come and meet with you? That's a good question, right? They didn't think about that. Oh, let's waste some time here. Let's come together. I don't have anything to do with you. I've got a good work going on, and there's nothing I should do to leave this thing. Verse 4. And they sent unto me 4 times after the sort, and I answered them after the same manner. Then sent Sanballat his servant unto me in like manner the 5th time, with an open letter in his hand, wherein was written, It is reported among the nations and Gashmu that saith it, that thou and the Jews think to rebel, for which cause thou art building the wall, and thou wouldest be their king, according to these words. And thou hast also appointed prophets to preach of thee at Jerusalem, saying, There is a king in Judah, and now shall it be reported to the king according to these words. Come now, therefore, and let us take counsel together. So, we've heard the rumor. And the rumor is what? The rumor is that you're setting this up because you're going to put yourself up as king. And you know what? This is just a rumor here, right? Listen, you come over, we'll talk about this, we'll get things set straight. What it sounds like they're saying, hey, you know what? We're on your side, buddy. We're on your side. Verse 8. I love this response. Verse 8. Then I sent unto him, saying, There are no such things done as thou sayest, but thou feignest them out of thine own heart. You are a liar. That's what he said. Some people are afraid to say that. They said, you're lying. You are a liar. There's no way. That's not being said. Never once have I heard that, right? You're lying. You have brought that up out of your own heart. Nobody's saying that. No, you know who's saying that? You're saying that. That's it. You are building up lies. Verse 9, for they all would have made us afraid, saying, their hands shall be weakened from the work that it be not done. But now, O God, strengthen thou my hands. So everybody's trying to distract. They're trying to bait him into a trap. He won't do it. Now, here's what you get when you keep your eyes focused on the prize here. Now we have the overcoming here. They overcome or they complete. Verse 15 and 16. So the wall was finished in the 25th day of the month, Elul, in 52 days. And it came to pass, when all the enemies heard thereof, that all the nations that were about us feared and were much cast down in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was wrought of our God. And so, what does he do? He says, look, all this being said, you know, they've done this hard work, and in 52 days, they complete it. Now, listen, that is a pretty amazing feat for what they did. 52 days is not long. I wonder what a congregation could do in 52 days if we just had a mind to work. What can the Lord's church do right here if we just said, you know what? This is the plan. This is what we're going to do. But here, let me point out 3 specific things that I see throughout all of this. Number 1 is they had a clear goal. They're going to rebuild the wall. They had a clear goal. They had focused leadership. Nehemiah, he doesn't back down. He's focused on what they're going to do. And then they all had the right motivation. Think about that. I mean, when you're thinking about building the wall, that's what part of the genius of this is. That they built, you know, we went through this. I don't know if I even mentioned this, really. I might have skipped over this. But they built the wall next to their own house. Now, why is that important? Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever met someone who didn't want to show up for work? Right? You met somebody like that, I'm sure, a few times. Let me ask you a question. If your life depended on it, would you show up for it? Yeah. If your house was going to be the first one to be attacked, you think you'd show up for work? Go ahead and rebuild that wall right next to your home? Oh, yeah. Cuts down travel time too, right? You go, hey, you know what? I'm going to wake up, I'm going to walk outside, and I'm at work. Yeah, I know that we're living in a bigger area here, and you know, probably takes about 30 minutes to get anywhere around this place, you know. And so, you know, if you got to go to work, maybe you're driving 20 or 30 minutes to work. Yeah, at least with traffic. You know, you have the right motivation here. It's right next to your house. You're trying to take care of your things. It's a short distance for where you have to go and work. This is rather genius, to be honest. But if you knew that safety was of the utmost concern, yeah, you'd get right to work, wouldn't you? You do that to your own house. You know, this, you know, just kind of a funny thing. This happened to us not too long ago. I was trying to enjoy a football game, and on a Saturday, it was Saturday night, and we haven't lived in our house for terribly long, and I was trying to hurry and do something at halftime. So I grabbed the door and I kind of slung it open real quick in my hand, and I felt something different. It came off of its hinges, and it was sitting there in my hand on the floor, and I'm going, oh boy. And I'm not, you know, when you've got your door off the hinges, you go, I think I probably ought to fix this, you know. You're not going to go to bed, you know, I'll get that tomorrow. As your front door, you're not going to just let it, like, I'll just sit it beside, maybe I'll lean it to, maybe people think it's shut. They had only put the little screws in the door, so I put big old screws in the door frame. Got that sucker put back on, I wanted to watch that game, but you know what? Took some precedence. Putting a door back on my house. You don't go to bed with that thing off. That's much like what they were dealing with. They were probably in constant anxiety over the fact that there were holes in the wall right next to where they were living. They had some pretty good motivation. Okay, so let's think about this now. Let's flip this on its edge here. So they had a clear goal. Well, what is our goal? We need a clear goal. They had a focused leadership. Every congregation of the Lord's church needs a leadership that is focused. And then 3, for all of us here, what is our motivation? I think about this quite a bit. We talk about our motivation a lot. We want to be faithful. We want to go to heaven. Revelation 10, verse 10, be thou faithful unto death, now shalt receive a crown of life. You want to be faithful and go to heaven. But there's more to it than that, right? A part of that faithfulness is reaching out to the lost. We need to have a clear focus on reaching those that are lost and bringing those people to Christ. We should have a twofold goal. One is to strengthen ourselves, and 2, to go out and find as many people that we can bring to Christ. And that's it. That's our goal. Now the question is, are we achieving that goal? And I don't mean as a congregation, I mean individually. Are we doing that? Are you and I both, are we doing that? Are we doing our part to be faithful and to bring others to Christ? Are we doing that? And so I hope the answer is yes. I'm guessing that there's a few in here that go, I need to change some things on this. This is not a time of criticism. This is not criticism from the pulpit. This is a time that we get to rebuild together. And the question is whether or not we are all going to be involved. Are we all going to be motivated to work? Because that's what every child of God is called to do. Have you become a Christian yet? Have you believed in Jesus? Have you repented of your sins? Have you confessed Him before men? Have you been baptized into Christ? If you've not done so, we'd be glad to help you out with that. If you haven't been faithful, make things right today. The invitation is yours. Please come as we stand and as we sing.